Got it. Good evening, everybody. Good to see everybody. Thanks for coming. We'll probably have a few more people will pop in. So Kit, you'll be able to admit people as they come in. Everybody that I can see on my screen now, for the most part, we've met. For the couple that we haven't, my name's Kent Dresser. I'm the president of the Professional Captains Association and of Dresser Marine, which owns and operates a few different services, including Confident Captain, which does the 100-ton licensing training programs, and the STCW basic safety training based in Newport, Rhode Island. This is our 19th year in business. We've had, essentially a front row seat, the small vessel operator licensing program. And when we decided to launch the Professional Captains Association, we saw a need not only for the professional development of 100-ton boat captains, but also a source of advocacy, networking, and general professional development for the entire group. And so, the mornings that I come to work and I put my Professional Captains Association hat on, the first question that sort of, that I ask myself is, how can we make the professional jobs and the lives of people with small boat licenses better? And certainly one of the ways that we can do that is by, forging strong relationships with the governing agencies that help us to do our jobs and help us to get our certifications. So of the 12 seminars that we'll do this year, I'm certainly most excited about this. And having Captain Clare here is, a fantastic opportunity for us not only to interact, but also to be brought up to speed on what I found to be some pretty interesting data and statistics that we might not always think about on a day-to-day basis. I think it's really easy for the mariner, and I've certainly done this myself, to sit back and say, well, what can the Coast Guard do for me? Or how could this be easier? I was joking earlier this evening that I just finished filling out my own Merchant Mariner credential renewal. I'm on my 6th renewal that is getting sent in this month. And, it's easy to say, I've seen ways that this could be easier, or this took a lot of time. It's not too often that we also say, yeah, we're looking for solutions. How can we be a part of the solution? So I might encourage everybody to approach it with that mindset as well, because collectively, as a group, it can be challenging to get too many people to come and meet with us at dinner time on a Wednesday night, particularly when people are sort of fed up with Zoom. But the information here tends to resonate, and it tends to cast a big net, and it draws a pretty big crowd, and it does get response. So as much as we would like to learn and develop our relationship with the Coast Guard from a guy that's had a front row seat and how these things work from the mariner's perspective for a long time, I can say that really over the past 15 years, we've seen a tremendous amount of improvement for the small boat operator in the way that the National Maritime Center works. I was mentioning earlier tonight that we regularly actually even recommend that people just call the customer service line, that they can do a much better job than we can now, even though we tend to have a fairly detailed level of knowledge into some of the ins and outs. So I'm really delighted that Captain Clare is here, and I hope that's a valuable. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedules, and I hope it's a valuable time investment. So nobody came here to see me, so thanks for coming. Captain Clare, I'll turn it over to you, and just a heartfelt thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. And so I'm doing this from home, and the logistics is Kit's going to be putting my presentation up for everybody to see. I appreciate that she had solicited earlier for some questions, and I'll answer those at the end of my presentation. And certainly if there's any questions during, please put them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them after. And my PowerPoint is really more to be just to provide some information and some statistics on the National Maritime Center. So I sent my biography, and I think Kit sent it out. I've been in the Coast Guard for over 25 years. I have a very strong prevention background. I've been a vessel inspector at multiple units, a chief of inspections, prevention department head, OCMI. So I was very familiar with the way vessels work, but the Coast Guard, when we centralized credentialing, the large majority of the workforce is a civilian workforce. So, we have continuity, but there's not a lot of military expertise out in the Coast Guard regarding how credentials are processed and issued. So I've found it to be a very insightful and interesting position. So, real brief about National Maritime Center. I hope everybody knows we include the regional exam centers and monitoring units throughout the country. There's 17 regional exam centers. There's 3 monitoring units, and they're really the storefronts for what we do. That's really where the mariners are going to have an opportunity to interact with National Maritime Center personnel. And then in West Virginia, we have another 180, 200 civilians that are evaluators, course evaluators, safety and suitability evaluators, and our medical screening staff is here. And then we have a fairly large contract workforce that works in the medical certificates, our correspondence and records branch, as well as the customer support center is staffed by contracts. So with that, I'm ready to get into my presentation. I know there's, I think, 19 slides, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of those. So hopefully we can get to the questions.
Great.
So Kit,
Yep, I'm just getting this set up. Give me 1 second, and we'll get everybody hopefully viewing. There we go.
great. And you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So I assumed command in July of last year, and this has just kind of been where I've decided to provide some of my focus. So when I say the mariner and customer experiences, I've really tried to better understand what the mariner's experience is versus what the NMC experience is, and that there's a lot. I kind of look at the process that we have as kind of an assembly line. We do have definitely some stovepipes within NMC, but it works real well when we have those complete applications. We're able to move your credential from the regional exam center to the National Maritime Center, to our safety and suitability team, to our professional qualifications examiners or the evaluators, and then ultimately to credential production where it's printed and sent to you. And I put additional information there because unfortunately, over half of all of the credential applications that we receive have errors or omissions or other problems that result in delays for the mariners. So we released a top AIs is what we call it, but the top AI reasons, and I have some recommendations at the end of that bulletin on how you could better control the process for your credential application or for anybody who's working for you. And I think the two most important pieces to that is recognizing the time and not waiting until the last 30 days or the last 45 days to get your application in for either your medical certificate or your credential. And then also utilizing the regional exam centers. They are open and available to assist with reviewing your application before submission, and that can be done over the phone. If you were to schedule, you need to schedule an appointment with them, but they can do that over the phone, or you could do that in person. So I highly encourage people utilize the resources that we're providing. And I know that there's other people and organizations that provide that as well, but the Coast Guard we have the regional exam centers. And then certainly you can utilize the contact center if you have questions specific to your application as well. So the next focus, application and processing. No, not the next slide. Sorry. I'll go real quick. So we are getting fairly close within the next couple of months in being able to centralize the submission of your credential applications. So instead of sending them to the regional exam centers, you'll send them to the National Maritime Center, and then we will end up sending them to the regional exam centers. So that will help eliminate some regional exam centers are processing things quicker. It could be there's just a large influx at one regional exam center, and it's similar to what happened with medical certificates a few years ago, where all medical certificates are submitted centrally to the National Maritime Center. So it's going to be an improvement for the Mariner. First class pilotage is, we're trying to get a more standardized national policy on how we want to have that first class pilotage determined by the OCMIs, not trying to dictate it, but to get more consistency. And then resources is just me. I want to make sure that my staff has the right resources, training that they need, and also that we need some people. We have some vacant positions. So those are kind of my focus areas. Next slide. So accomplishments, there's been a lot, and some of these are prior to my arrival. COVID-19, I think everybody's changed how they've done things. Obviously, this Zoom presentation is a great example, but one of the biggest changes that happened during the COVID-19 response is we went electronic with our application submission. So there's no longer a paper submission running through the National Maritime Center. So you may still send your application in the mail to the regional exam centers, but it's going to be scanned there and it's going to enter into an electronic process. So it worked out well also because at the end of this year, the Federal Records Center is no longer going to be accepting records. So the NMC is not going to have the ability to take paper records and send those to the Federal Records Center, because the NMC does not maintain every single Mariner record. As we keep those for a certain amount of time, but then we send them to the Federal Records Center. The Military to Mariner program has been very successful, and that's recognizing that there's skill sets for members of the military and giving them credit, as well as for active duty members, they do not have to pay for fees. Electronic exams for the take-home exams, we were able to move that process so that the submission can be done electronically. Increased size for submissions. There's been a lot of problems and complaints that we had been receiving about the limitation of 10 megabytes. So you would have to break up your application into multiple emails, and that was causing concern and problems. We've been able to get that increased up to 35 megabytes. So it should minimize or eliminate the need for multiple email submissions to us. I have scanning records. So like I mentioned, the Federal Records Center at the end of this year is no longer going to be accepting records. So we've implemented a process where we're going to be able to take the remaining paper records that we have and scan those into our database. So it'll still be maintained. We'll have quicker access to the information, and we will not have to store the paper anymore, which we're not going to be able to do at the end of the year anyways. Local limited, restricted, and pilotage. There's been some really positive updates there. In the Great Lakes, District 9 signed out the first class pilotage instruction that covers 5 OCMI zones, and down in the D8 area, REC Houston's been working on a consolidated pilotage package for 3 OCMIs that's going through final approval. So Those have been really positive updates. And then course approval extensions. So we went out a couple of weeks ago with an NMC bulletin regarding course approval extensions. So we're really at historical numbers as far as courses that we're looking at right now. There's over 400 courses that are in our queue, and we needed to come up with a way that we could ensure that we're not, number one, we're able to get through those, but also we had a wide variety of 1 month, like in the January, we had 80 courses that were coming up for renewal. And then, you look a couple months down the road and there might be 10. So we're trying to distribute that so that we're going to have a more consistent influx of applications. And then also to try to provide a little higher priority focus on the courses that the providers really want to be approved. So I've been out, and what industry has been really pushing me is the new courses, as well as those that are modifications that they've made significant modifications to, and they want to be able to conduct training with their new modifications versus the existing approval. So those are really being our primary focus. And then we've also gotten some additional staff in place to help with the backlog that we have there. So next slide.
Sorry, I'm not sure why it's not going. There.
So numbers is a really important thing for me to try to just make sure people are aware. So we are at what I've been told is a historic low in the total Mariner population. We're under 200,000 mariners. Our credentials that we issued last year did start going back up from 2020 med-surg. So we're expecting to see similar numbers to prior to COVID this year. Course providers has gone down a little bit. We've seen some reduction there because of COVID. And then total courses, designated examiner numbers, qualified assessor numbers are provided there. And then the total number of contacts that our contact center received last year. So you can go to the next slide. This slide just really kind of talks about that assembly line process for your credential and the steps that it goes through. And it's a good visual. So like I said, it's really an assembly line here at the National Maritime Center. And the best thing for you as the mariner is to keep your credential on that assembly line, which means we want an accurate and complete one that doesn't result in it coming off the assembly line because it needs additional information. So you can go to the next slide. So this is just a different way to look at the total credential numbers. It provides more of a month-to-month status, and then the red line is our net processing time. So the NMC goal is 30 days for net processing time, and I would just highlight that when we mention net processing time at National Maritime Center, it's when we have the credential. So there are we do have statistics posted on our website that talk about overall versus net processing time. And for me, that goes back to the mariner experience is not the NMC experience. So net processing time is NMC experience. The overall processing time is that mariner time. So the overall processing time for a credential is upwards, of 60 days, but you can look on our website and see that does vary as well. Next slide. So this is again just a different breakdown of our statistics for 2021 regarding the credentials. And this is a presentation that Kit has, and she can make it available. So if you're interested in the numbers, that's why there's a lot of numbers. You can look at them, in the future as well. Next slide. So this is, again, just a similar slide to kind of talk about month to month for medical certificates. We did have some problems with Adobe, and we use shared mailboxes. We put out a bulletin in September. We actually had problem with our shared mailbox was not accepting any additional applications, and we didn't see that for a couple of days. And we put out that bulletin because it's possible that there were submissions that we didn't get. That was back in I believe September. But I'm gonna make a pitch for the NMC bulletins that we put out, to make sure that you are monitoring that, because we do our best to try to make sure that you're aware when there's changes or there's problems. Next slide. Again, this is a good kind of breakdown of just some of the different things that we do with numbers. You can go to the next slide. So this is one of my favorite slides. Is just an average day at NMC, and I sometimes will highlight the contact center. So we're dealing with 1,300 contacts a day. That's via email, that's phone calls, that's chat. I certainly recommend that you certainly utilize whichever one you find best, but just a recognition of the volume and why we've kind of funneled some of the calls to a contracted call center versus having hundreds of people calling our evaluators so that they don't have time to do evaluations. But we're upwards of over 200 for medical certificates and MMCs. We're sending out 500 at least 500 different pieces of mail each day. So there's just a lot of volume here, and this kind of gets back to time. Is certainly every application credential MedCert is important, but there's just a lot of volume, and so the more time that you can give us and give yourself is the better chance that we're going to be able to get that turned around in a timely manner for you. Next slide. So the RACs are open currently by appointment only. The RAC in New York has moved to Lower Manhattan. Electronic applications, everything's electronic for us. We still are getting stuff in the mail or faxed. If you can send us a PDF, that's definitely the fastest way for us to process your application. And then that website there is for making appointments. Next slide. And again, this is just where the RACs are located. Next slide. So application processing, we will only process using PDF. We don't accept other ones. We've had a wide variety of just challenges with using different formats. So we needed to standardize that. We've had some problems when we split out the medical certificate process from the credentialing process. There's been a lot of benefits as far as timing, but the current 719K, if you're doing an initial application that has your height and weight and gender, is going to a different part of NMC. So we're asking, for mariners, if they're able to put that information on their MMC application as well. We have implemented a process so that we can get that information here, but that's just, and there's also a plan change for the 719B. So the new size limit for electronic applications is in place. I saw somebody asked that in the chat. And then auto-generated response acknowledging receipt is not sent. So that's not an NMC change. The Coast Guard cyber does not allow that because of the risk. So, you know, we are trying to institute a process for the RECs to send a separate email back to the mariners to let them know that their credential has been received. Next slide. So exam working groups in prior to 2015, you know, there had been a FOIA request, and the Coast Guard was required to release all of our questions that we use for the different tests. So in 2015, we were able to not have to provide those publicly, since, you know, we're using those to test the competence for the mariners, but we had to make sure there was a process in place to develop new questions with industry involvement. So, you know, we have deck and engine working groups. Certainly anybody who has a credential. We've had some you know, lower level licenses, and you know, these are held at NMC. So these are the upcoming dates. And next slide. So requesting Mariner records, you know, you can request a copy of your records, and you know, you just need to visit the NMC website and hit records request. So next slide. So, and I'm almost done with slides. My key messages for industry is, you know, apply 90 days in advance for your MMC or your medical certificate. And that's gonna eliminate, I think, the risk of running up towards your expiration date. Utilize the regional exam centers, they're there. That's the resource I can offer you. Ensure your application is complete and have somebody check it. Over half of all of our MMC applications have problems, and it results in it going to AI. And I'll just kind of highlight one of the complaints that I see from a lot of mariners is, you know, why did you send that to me in the mail versus just sending me an email? And it's a challenge that we're kind of working through, but unfortunately the database that we have right now, when that letter is generated, it has information collectively that's considered privacy information, which is your Mariner reference number, your name and your address, and that can't be emailed unless it's encrypted. So I can't institute a process until I can get that information removed from the letter. So, and then please verify that your file is complete. So, and then those are contact information if you have any questions, and that's my presentation. So, Kit, did you want me to answer the questions that were received?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. That was great. I just wanted to get off the share screen mode there. So we did have some questions come in early, and Captain Clare took some time to double check the answers and research those a little bit. And so, yes, if you'd like to address those, that would be fabulous.
Did you send these questions out? Are people aware of what the questions are?
No, they have not seen them.
Okay, so I mean, bear with me, I'll read the question. My MMC expires in February. I have prepared all the necessary forms for the national portion, but also need to renew the basic training element for my STCW endorsement. So the question, should I submit my package now with evidence of enrollment in the upcoming STCW refresher course, or wait until the completion of the course? And my recommendation would be to wait until you have a complete application for that. Number two, paper charts are being retired this year. How does the NMC intend to address assessing mariners for electronic navigation knowledge? when it comes to the limited mate and master exams. The short answer for us is no change. Paper charts are not going away. The testing for paper charts is not going away either. The way that you get paper charts is certainly going away. The requirement to carry on vessels, I know, is changing as well, but we don't have any change right now for that. The third question, my OUPV credential expired in June 2020. I did not renew the credential because of COVID. Can I still renew? So there was something that had caused. So yes, you can. The Coast Guard had issued a bulletin during COVID that extended credentials that expired between March of 2020 to October of 2021. And it was for a year, whichever was the greater, either, a year from your expiration from March. So that would be this one. So, it would have been extended to June of 2021. And then, the grace period is the area that there had been some problems, and on appeal, this has been determined that your grace period will be 1 year from when it was extended. So for this particular question, you have until June of 2022 in order to renew your credential. What are you doing for medical training for maritime professionals? And I think we weren't exactly sure what this question was asking, but the national officer endorsements must have first aid and CPR training. Under STCW, there are multiple levels of first aid endorsement. Basic first aid, which is part of basic training endorsement, medical first aid provider, which is often referred to as medical care provider. Information on each of these can be found in 46 CFR 12.6, and there's different sites, or in NAVIC 814, or NAVIC 504, or NAVIC 204. So there's a lot of information out there. And then we also didn't know if this might be tied to accepted versus approved courses. And, the only accepted courses are American Red Cross First Aid CPR, and then American Heart Association CPR. So all other courses must have their Coast Guard approval number on the certificate. And if it doesn't, it's going to result in an AI. So some of the questions in the exam, as well as training charts, still use Loran data. Is there any plan to update these materials to something more relevant to modern navigation? So what my staff told me is the Coast Guard exams no longer contain any questions regarding Loran. And if you've had a test that had any Loran questions, then please let us know so we can remove those. The amount of questions that we have it's in the thousands and thousands. And when it comes to the chart plot, is we have been working on new chart plots to put out there as part of the exam working group. And there are training charts that are kind of set in time, and there's three charts that are set in time. So you may still see Loran data. We can't simply get a new chart and start putting out questions. So we're kind of stuck with those three charts. Number 6 was in response to COVID-19. The NMC has started to allow a limited number of online and AI powered testing for domestic licenses, such as OUPV and Master 50, 100 ton. Do you see this as a permanent change? Excuse me. What has NMC identified as potential pitfalls here? And what can course providers do? There's kind of a lot in this question to be proactive and circumnavigate those pitfalls. So there's definitely been a lot of innovation with COVID. And so while the US education system, and this is what I got from my staff, so I keep it was the public face of remote learning. Many other educational venues have had the same concerns and turned to technology to meet the demand that did not go away with COVID. To that end, the Coast Guard and the maritime training industry have embraced remote learning as well. Do we see it as permanent? Yes. We also see that there are many other areas of mariner training that can't be accomplished through remote or distance learning. Our messaging is the course submittal and completion requirements have not changed. The Coast Guard has not been approving remote delivery and, the Coast Guard has been approving remote delivery and computer-based training for years. We are in the process. There's some courses that are offered with blended online and classroom. There's the same course can be classroom, and we're going to be putting out a bulletin, if we haven't already, that we're combining all those into just one course approval. So that's going to be on our website soon. And then if you're considering using technology to do end of course exams remotely, many of the same discussions apply. Do you intend to use artificial intelligence, a live proctor, or both? Live proctoring using platforms such as Zoom are not conducive to the proctor being able to monitor a large number of students. We have a NMC courses at uscg.mil email. I can provide that to Kit if you really have more in-depth questions. You can reach out directly to my course approval staff, Jeff Brandt, and he can respond. Okay. Recently, I experienced customer support at NMC giving different answers to the same questions. Information in response to calls contradicted each other, was unclear, incorrectly notified me, information was missing from my application. I understand it's complicated. Is there a better avenue to report these discrepancies? I would say that the preferred platform is, if you call the contact center, is to ask to talk to a supervisor there if you're getting conflicting messages. I was listening, those calls are recorded. I've listened to some. Sometimes I think it's a matter of, the question is heard differently from the contact center, but we should not be providing mixed messages to you as a mariner. So if we are, there are supervisors within the contact center that have been at NMC for a long time and are really familiar with the different requirements. And I would just encourage you to ask to talk to one of the supervisors. And I think there was one other question. Well, there's two. I know Kid had read one. Do I envision a time when merchant mariner credentialing processing is conducted by outside agencies or contractors such as class societies, leaving the Coast Guard to verify compliance with oversight of the class societies, similar to the third-party option for the towing vessel industry? Subchapter M. I think we already kind of do that with allowing training providers to do the majority of the training, but as far as other planned uses of third parties, I don't know of any other planned use of third parties right now. So I think that covers all the questions, and at 40 minutes, so I think I'm doing pretty good.
Great, thank you. Ken, are you still on the line? You had put a question in the chat. I was going to see if you'd just like to ask it directly to Captain Clare.
Sure. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Hi, Captain Clare. You've partially answered this question I typed in for Kit. I wanted to thank you for being here tonight, and this is really important information. So very interesting. My question was, I'd like to get your thoughts on what you think about the trend in online learning, online courses for exam prep and that sort of thing, and everything it involves. And you've addressed some of that in the answers you just have given, but if there's any more you can expand on that on online training, I'd be happy to hear it. So thank you very much. Pleased to have you with us.
I think we're certainly having those discussions. I've heard from my staff, industry is definitely asking us like there's areas that we still don't necessarily feel are, fighting a fire. Can you use a simulator for fighting a fire? I know it's not necessarily online, but it's, simulation is really one of those big things that we're seeing from a lot of the larger training providers is, wanting to use increased simulation to meet some of the requirements. But I think that, it's kind of a show me. And if you think you can do it, is we're willing to evaluate that.
Thank you. Ken, did you have any other additions there? Oh, okay.
Okay, we had just a couple questions through the presentation came up on the chat. Captain Clare, I don't know if you could see the chat window or not, but there were a couple of good questions there. If not, I'm happy to read them to you.
I saw stuff pop up, but I was either, probably looking at my notes or talking. So I think one was on 35 megabytes, and
yeah.
that is what it is right now.
Okay, that's in place now.
That is in place now.
Captain Erica Bardos had asked what ways pedagogy was considered in the course evaluation process. I wasn't sure if she meant in the course evaluation or in the Merchant Mariner, in your application.
What was the question? What was used?
Erica's on the call. I don't know, Erica, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. I was just wondering, obviously the content in the course is evaluated, but if pedagogy was considered in any particular ways.
Maybe I can get back to you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what pedagogy is, so
Sorry, teacher term. The way you go about teaching the content.
I'm not sure. Maybe I can circle back with my staff and provide that to Kit.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
No problem.
Would that be train the trainer, the requirement for train the trainer, probably?
Yes, that could be considered in there, yeah.
Captain, if next question is, if 50% of the applications end up in AI, is there future plans like the exam working groups to review the application itself?
So the Coast Guard, right? I'm sorry, did I not let you finish? So the Coast Guard has received congressional approval and recurring funding to begin development of a new credentialing system. And it would be taking it's going to be an online system. And, when you do things online, whether it's paying a bill or, filling out applications, there's technology that is very common for everybody right now that will prevent you from going screen to screen. And that's what we're gonna get, and we're really trying to get this outside of the Coast Guard network, so it'll allow the mariners direct access into filling out their credential. We can put rules in place that won't allow you to get to submit until you have completed the at least the information. So we can't get an incomplete application where you didn't check a box, you didn't sign something, but unfortunately that's a couple years out. We do have a pretty robust quality check that we do at NMC when the credential applications come in. And so the REC does a check. We have a kind of identified what our top errors are. And then I have a team, they're called the EAPS team here in West Virginia, and they look at every credential before it moves on to your safety and suitability or your professional qualifications for those errors. But again, if they find a problem, they're going to put it out in AI. So, we're trying, like, I would prefer to reject something up front. And what's happened within medical since we've had that process centralized is, the amount of AI is less, but the process is different. And in medical, we have a limited number of screeners that look at that application. So if there's errors, we won't accept the application. So if you've had problems with your medical application, we don't allow it to enter that assembly line until it's complete. And we might be able to get to that once we centralize our credentialing process. So the AI that you get from medical is really when your screener or your medical evaluator might have found a problem that we truly do need more information. So I don't think that we'll ever reach a point where there's not some amount of AI, but to reduce it to the point where it's not taking up half of all of our credentials. And that really is where, honestly, the biggest delay is for overall processing time, is just the back and forth. And then some the restrictions that we have as an agency with not being able to send that letter via email right now. And that's one of my priorities, to try to get a system change made that will allow that. That would reduce, I think, our overall processing time.
Yeah. Sarah Hirsch is here. She's the waterfront director at Orange Coast College out on the West Coast, and she was curious as to why the number of course providers. And I had the same question. We're assuming it's directly economically related to COVID, but why is the course provider number dropped in the past year?
I mean, very likely due to COVID. I mean, we don't control the total number of course providers, but
it's not unlike owning a restaurant. I mean, if you've got space, you need to fund that space, and if you can't put people in it, then it's not.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen fewer course providers, but we're not seeing fewer courses. So we are definitely seeing a lot more submissions of courses for approval. I kind of talked about that, but the goal that we have is 150 in the queue, and we're at over 400 right now in the queue. So it's our metrics is, and you can find this on the NMC database. If you look at throughput, and our throughput is less than 1, that means that we're getting more in than we're putting out. So in January, it was one of the first times. Well, it's the first time since I've been there where our throughput was more than 1, which means, we were able to process more courses going out for approval than we received coming in.
Okay.
There's a question here from Larry. It's interesting because I was just having the same conversation with someone today about the same topic. I have my 100-ton master. Oops, it just moved. I have my 100-ton master, and I'm interested in also obtaining a 100-ton mate as a way of bumping that up to a 200-ton mate with a small amount of additional experience. When I spoke with NMC, I got contradictory answers. Can I do this, is the question.
I'm going to just start creating kind of a couple of questions where I will get you the right answer on that. And that's, again, I kind of mentioned this early on, is credentialing expertise in the Coast Guard is, for me right now, it's something that I continue to learn. So I will happily get you the right answer on that. And I would apologize if you received contradictory information.
But I think your point to ask to speak to the supervisor was the answer that Larry's looking for, Kit. And just a quick sidebar, there's not enough information here for him to answer that. He needs more information than this to answer that question, actually. So he cannot answer that question as much as he wants to. We have one other seat time question on there too, with the same. I'll talk to that participant afterwards, and I'll help him with that answer. I have an answer for him. Nate has 2 good questions that I can't help with. Nate from MCs is here. He had asked back when you were talking about 719B, and I believe you wanted height and weight on there. And he had asked where, which was exactly the thought that had crossed my mind. Where on that form should we put it?
On the top.
Okay.
On the top.
And,
Again, we're asking for that, but
Yeah.
you know, we have implemented processes here since I've been here and this is really a problem with those original credentials. And you know, you submit a physical and you know your 719B and we at NMC are splitting it up so that and we cannot print a credential without height and weight. You know, our system won't let us do that. So it becomes one of those, we have to have it. It's not used for your evaluation on your NMC. Like there's really nothing that our evaluators are looking for, but you know, we do need it in order to print your credential.
got it.
Can I dive in a little bit further on that? Do you want it like just so we do it all with PDF that we'd end up writing on the PDF with like PDF editor or whatever? Do you just want that anywhere?
Yeah,
on
you
the
can just do it
content
right on the top. Yeah, that's fine.
door? Just want to give whatever you make it so that we can make AIs slower. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And
There was
we
one or
put
two
that
other-
out.
one or-
Oh no, sorry.
one or two
We had
other
put that out,
questions.
and I think we did a September bulletin. You know, and that's where we kind of talked about height and weight too.
Good. In the chat, there's one or two other seat time questions. I'll circle back with those individuals and help both of them. Captain Clare would need more information to answer that, so he's not going to be able to make it on the spot. Appropriate answer.
Yeah, and I know that Kit read
That's all I
one to me earlier, and she could kind of put those in an email. I could have my staff look at them and then get back to her on, you know, the NMC, the definitive NMC response.
I will ask if I could, Captain Clare, if I could add one more question. One sort of gnawing issue that's brought up to us on a regular basis, either as the association or if I'm wearing my instructor's hat in the training program, is when people upgrade, you know, you take a 80-hour course that satisfies the requirements for a 100-ton master, but you don't have that seat time. You don't have the tonnage on your seat time. You end up with a 50-ton master's license. That's a fairly common thing to have happen. That mariner then accrues seat time on that license that qualifies for 100-ton, and you know, more than 1 year later, they now have the seat time that qualifies for the 100-ton. The way the requirement is written now, they need to take the entire test again or come take our entire course again. And it is, you know, of the things, it is at times a little bit unfair to the mariner. And I just wondered if you don't have a way to weigh in that, I certainly understand it, but it's something that I'm often asked, and as the course provider, it doesn't always look good to say, well, I'm sorry, you just need to take this course again.
Yeah, I might look into that more. I don't know if that's the, you know, we only accept your course for
1 year.
up to 1 year.
Correct.
And I'd make you know, there's a process for reconsideration that a mariner, if you don't like the NMC determination, is you can make a request for reconsideration, and you know, that's a higher level. We have you know, our senior evaluators are in, you know, we call them the recon team. And then, you know, any recon denials have to come to me, and I spend a lot of time looking at those and talking to my deputy. So you know, my kind of expectations for the evaluators are that they follow what's in the CFRs and apply it in a uniform fashion. And hopefully we do that. And then, you know, for the mariners, if, you know, you feel that you don't agree with that determination, you know, I would say you could certainly submit a request for reconsideration. I've granted some of those, not specific to that, but I mean, I have, you know, looked at, you know, they've taken the course in the past, you know, or, you know, recently I was dealing with one from a mariner who was kind of making a case for what I would say is reconsideration on equivalencies is, so. But I mean, you could tell them that, you know, this is what the CFR states, but you know, if you can always ask for, you know, another determination, you know, the original determination stays in place until that, and then ultimately, if you don't like reconsideration, you could appeal, and that's sometimes results in, you know, NMC was wrong, or NMC was misinterpreting or not
Yeah.
interpreting things the way that that headquarters and headquarters sets the policies. So
Yeah, and I do believe it's an interpretation, and that thing, you know, the most helpful thing would be to have that additional seat time submitted within 1 year of having completed the course. I'll circle back with that, and maybe one day you and I could continue that dialogue. I'll dig a little bit deeper. But you know, in terms of serving our mariners, that's definitely always been one of the bigger fish that we have to fry. So I appreciate your insight on it.
and if you don't have, I know Jeff Brandt is available too. You know, he's the courses chief as well. You know, I can certainly put you in contact with him, or I could have a call where you can talk to me and him.
Yeah, that'd be great. I appreciate that. So thank you very much. I think that's all the chat questions we have. And I don't want to keep you all night, Captain Clare. I don't want to keep any of you all night. Is there anyone that wanted to, maybe non-seat time related question before
I have a question.
Yes, Sarah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for hosting this. This has been so informative. Kind of coming out of some of these questions, and certainly ones I have as a course provider at a community college, we're at the 100-ton level and below here in this conversation, which doesn't come up much. It's like one course with so many complications. It surveys everything limited licensed mariner needs to know. When we go above 100-ton, we have all of our STCW requirements, and we can put ourselves in these little boxes and train for each of those things. So 100-ton, we have to take it all in one test. Now, as a course provider, I'm finding I am testing my students, who are usually active mariners, on outdated material. And I know we all know that, and we have to do it. And that's where we're at. It's catching up to us more this year than it has in past years. I know we did talk about the charts, but I have mariners who do a great job on the water, who come in to get licensed, and they've never touched a paper chart. That means my class has to be longer for them to succeed, or I have to shortcut more. I have to do more of a cram class. As a community college, I want to offer the best training I can. But if I offer a 160-hour course and say Captain Kent is offering an 80-hour course, well, the students are going to go there. They're going to cram for their tests, and they're not going to learn what I hope they will. I know this is kind of a long, like, amount of information. What I am just wanting to do is share this, because I think in the next 5 to 10 years, as a community of limited licensed mariners, we really need to envision how we are going to train new mariners, so they are not just taught to the test of things that have been retired from active service. So I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but I appreciate being able to share it.
And I appreciate that. You know, I think the questions. So, and I hear this a lot, and I kind of would go back to volume. Is, you know, I've been told that, you know, from the deck side, there's over 20,000 questions. You know, from the engineering side, there's over 20,000 questions. You know, my exam team it consists of, you know, master level, either engineers or masters. And I think I have, you know, 2 deck and 2 engine. We just got a new master. So, you know, there's so many questions that it's really hard for us to update them all. And I've been trying to kind of push the exam working groups if there's an industry need. You know, I haven't had takers yet, but they're, you know, I kind of reached out to some of the towing vessel industries, you know, with subchapter M going into place. They didn't, there's no questions on some of the new stuff, and there's no reason we can't create those, but I don't have in staff enough people to do it. So we continue to focus and on the exams. I'm kind of excited. We've been working with the Navy and their strategic sea lift officers to get, which is credentialed mariners from the academies that are also Navy reservists, and they're going to have a group of engineers and deck cadets come into our next exam working groups, and they're going to stay here for their reserve time. So when I'm able to get more resources, then hopefully I can start developing more questions as far as Coast Guard tests. But if there's a way, or there's specific things within the small passenger vessel community that we're not testing, I don't have that expertise on staff, and would certainly love to work towards maybe an exam working group, which unfortunately is not something that we have been successful in putting on the road. We're probably going to try it again, but you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, but you're kind of part of the process in creating those questions, and then I think hopefully you're an advocate for the process. And
I've attended a working group on site, and so I guess the only feedback I have there is I didn't find it helpful. We were reviewing some questions that were accurate but outdated, and that we had there really just wasn't a way to pursue that. And in fact, I have a 1,600-ton sail endorsed license, and I was put on towing questions. So I'll continue to attend, but I'll continue to voice my activism towards finding a way to really reach the mariner.
Sarah, and Captain Clare, I apologize. Did you have more? I had a way to help.
I
there,
have
so
nothing
I'm
else to
gonna-
say.
We've come across that, and we've over the years been able to develop solutions, and I'd be happy to catch up with you offline, and Kit and I can probably both provide quite a bit of help there. So we'd be happy to help you out with that. But I will add, the 80-hour part is, I don't think you meant to say it, but you're like, they're not going to know the information well when they come to this 30. Yeah, they do know it well when they get done. And over the years, we've been able to sort of, I wouldn't call it easy, or we've been able to come up with appropriate and efficient ways to address not all, but I think some of the concerns you have now, and I'd be happy to share our information as we've shaken it out. So, but they do know it when they leave our doors, for sure. They might not remember it for long. That part I cannot help, unfortunately. I wish I could. That's why we started the Professional Captains Association, to keep targets right in front of people. Any other questions? I don't have any more, Kit.
No, I think this has been fabulous. Thank you so much, Captain Clare, and thank you everyone who chimed in with all these great questions. We will certainly do our best to follow up and send you emails and potentially even synthesize some of the information that came out of this discussion this evening. So really a big thank you all across the board. And this is just one of the great opportunities that we can leverage here with the Professional Captains Association. So we encourage everyone to join if you're not a member already. This is what it's all about.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to communicate.
Thank you.
About NMC.
Thanks,
All right,
Captain.
bye.
Appreciate it.
Have
Good
a
night.
wonderful evening, everyone.